and welcome to Glamour Live. I am Molife Kumona, the online editor for Glamour Magazine, South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us today on our live. We really appreciate it. We know you could have been anywhere else, but you're here with us, so we appreciate it. There are a lot of lives happening, but you chose to be with us today. Today we have got a sports broadcaster and a media personality, Motshidisi Mohono, who's going to be chatting with us about everything lockdown, her career, and all those exciting things that you've come used to in terms of this Glamour live chat. I'm just going to request for Motshidisi to join us for our conversation. Again, thank you you spending time with us. Just joining. There we go.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I love
Thank
the haircut.
you. Hey,
I love it.
poppin'. Poppin', I enjoy it.
How do you manage to get like to look this slick? You see, I'm wearing a hat because Kunzi, my inside here. You look so slick.
You must knot it. You have to wash it. While it's still damp, you knot it, and then, moisturize all the time.
So that's your secret. You moisturize all the time.
That's my secret. But in front of now, like during the lockdown, I've also been looking it up and wearing beanies.
Yeah.
But today I thought I would just let it out.
So Mo, thank you so much for chatting to us. Totally appreciate it. We appreciate your time. And we appreciate that the first woman to anchor a Rugby World Cup final decided to chill with us this evening. How did that feel? How was that like?
Yeah, it was.
For you to do that. And we also won that year.
It was amazing. I think the cherry on top was, of course, the Springboks doing really well. But for me personally, it was at the culmination of 8 years of hard work, knocking at the door, staying true to myself, staying true to the craft, getting better and better with every single production that I did. And on the world stage, it's the thing of dreams to really do what you love and be given that kind of responsibility and that kind of that kudos, that tap on your back, like, yo, you are so great, we are going to give you a final. Yeah, so it was amazing.
Yes.
It was amazing.
No, that was amazing. Congratulations on that. It's so impressive. So let's talk lockdown. What have you been doing right now? During the lockdown, what have you been up to? And how many days are you in lockdown? Are you in lockdown with everybody, or did you start prior? What's your story?
So we ended work the Wednesday prior to Thursday midnight. So essentially I was still going to work at the time. I work at a radio station called Vision View Sports Radio, so we're a sports radio station. But we too had to shut down because for a good month and a half, all of our content was geared around COVID-19 and its effect on sport. So it kind of stopped making sense because we started to sound more like a talk radio station as opposed to a sports radio station, because what are you reporting? So that's when the lockdown really started for us. And yeah, it's been interesting. It's been interesting. I think for me, like, every time I try to whinge and whine, my bestie reminds me that you never have time. You never have time to rest. You always complain you don't have time to write, to read. So for me right now, it really is just a time when I can sit and reflect on my life, reflect on where I am, where I want to go, what I want to do, any other plans that I do have. So it's been good for me in that respect. Yeah.
And in terms of what I always ask when I do these interviews, I talk about the aspect of the mental health or the keeping sane of it. What do you do to keep sane? Because I know a lot of people have had panic attacks, anxiety attacks, even when they have to go buy stuff at the shops. How do you keep sane and keep your mental health in check during this very hectic time?
It's a very hectic time. I think I also had to learn, kind of psych myself up. Almost just to go to the store. I remember the first time I had to do it, like I too almost had a panic attack. But I think the most important thing is to constantly keep your mind engaged, and for everybody that means different things. So for you, it could be reading or writing. For me, it could be coloring in or listening to music or reading a new book or reading an old book and let it resonate differently because I am older and in a different place in my life. So I think the important thing is to not allow your mind to go idle, you know. I've even found myself enjoying cooking, even washing these lockdown dishes is not paying. There's always dishes. That I'm enjoying. Cooking, I haven't baked because I'm low, so I'm like, who am I baking for? Everything will just go to waste. So keeping the mind engaged, I think for me is very important. I do meditate as well, which also helps to keep my mind and my perspective positive.
Cool, no, definitely. And then, so we spoke about how it was like in terms of that moment for being the first woman to anchor a Rugby World Cup final. So going back to sports, I do know and have read that your dad is the one who introduced you to sports. Can you just take us through that and let us know how that happened and how that was like?
I think he was like any other dad trying to entertain the kids while mommy's away, you know. So, I mean, I was a baby. He'd prop me up on the couch, put pillows all around me, and be like, okay, switch on the TV, and it just became the thing that we do, you know. Even when my younger siblings were born, he would do the same thing with them, always trying to draw us into the sporting conversation, but it was mostly geared to football. And I think where my mind really started to open up is in primary school. I got to play netball. There was also football at school. You learn about cricket, you learn about tennis as well. Rugby I was introduced to in high school, and it was like the sport to play in my high school for any of the gens. So the team is like very full unit. And like the first team, in fact, is like they're the gods of the school, you know. So that's where I got my introduction into not only the sport, but the culture around the sport, because it really captures people. And I didn't quite understand it until I was in the thick of it in high school. Yeah.
So since you're talking about rugby, I put the question about that here towards the end, but I'll just
sorry to throw you off.
I'll just go through.
Cool.
No, it's totally all right. So in terms of you say that you being in the rugby space for you was important because initially you didn't see anyone who looked like you in the space, right? As a sports journalist, and then you got into the space. So my question is twofold. What gave you the courage to get into the space? That's one. And two, how did that change affect the way you view what you can do now?
So Lady Raga was actually my introduction to television, period, you know, and even to 2011, yes. That's when the search happened. Yes, and I remember our newsroom, they were like, no, you got to go, you'll kill it and whatever. And I'm like, but guys, we're a football newsroom. What's this rugby thing now? And they're like, no, go, you'll kill it. And so I went, and it's incredible just how it all unfolded on that day. I mean, we went to an orphanage in the morning to go and paint and all of that. I was talking to the gents like, okay, run me through it again, wada, 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 wada. And then I went to Ellis Park and I asked this lady just to keep my spot. And then we left, went back to the orphanage to finish what we were doing. And then she called me and she was like, no, it's time for us to come in. And when we got back, the producers weren't even seeing people anymore. You go straight to the judges. And I remember I sat there like thinking about, you know, the what do you call it, the script that they had given us, and we had to like memorize it and everything. And then bam, you know, you're sitting there, you go in, you have to say these lines, but you have to be brilliant. And I don't know, I just it just came to, you know. I think my years in radio also helped because then it's just easier to communicate. Even all the follow-up questions that the judges had, I was able to, you know, do well with those as well. And yeah, now I'm in the space and I'm looking around and I'm not seeing too many other Motshidisis around, you know, and
Yeah. Mm.
then I was like, okay, cool. If it's gonna be me, then I have to set the bar very
Mm.
high. I need to elevate things,
Yes.
you know, I need to make sure that things are at the highest level. And that's the work that I did. I tried my best to keep getting better and better and better and expecting more of myself as I rose up the ladder as well.
Mm.
Um, it can
Mm.
get very, very difficult because I think a lot of the times because you are the only one, there's no benchmark. You're constantly benchmarking yourself against the men in the
Mm.
space. And for me, it was someone like
Mm.
Olanjenga, who is incredible, but he had 10 years
Mm.
before me. So is it fair to benchmark
Yes.
myself against him? Then you have ex Springboks,
Mm.
ex internationals, and it's like, again, you know,
Mm.
but I learned that, you know, to be in the space and to do really well, I had to really believe
Mm.
in who I was, in the talent that I had. But I always had to get better and better and better. And I think when you start to really refine yourself and bring who you are to the table, then you start to do
Mm.
well. And then it did not it bothered me, but not quite as much as it did in the beginning, that I'm not seeing people like me, because I knew that that door I've now left open, because they can see, oh, she's
Oh
great.
yes.
Oh, we need to train even more people. We
Mm.
need to bring
You can
even
also
more
do that.
women
Yeah.
in. So now the door's ajar for anybody
Mm.
that wants to come in.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And you spoke about, I'll ask this question that I saw just now, but you spoke about how Carol
yeah,
Chabalala and Tato were
yeah.
mentored you as you're getting into the sports broadcasting industry. So how was that? How did you get that mentorship? And how important do you believe it is, particularly for women in all industries, to one, have a mentor, and for the people who are able to mentor to open up their arms and welcome these newbies in the industry?
It's so incredible, the story between Tato and I, because we used to work together at YFM. And I remember there was just a time when I was just over it. Like, I was like, hey, I have an
Mm.
accounting degree. Let me just get out of media. Like, what am I doing here? You know, let me
Mm.
go back, do my
Mm.
honors,
Mm.
etc. And I remember there was a particular day when I was just like, I am done. And she was like, listen, we're not orphans here. We're not
Mm.
lost. We didn't,
Mm.
it's not a misstep that
Mm.
we are here. We God's children, and He's going to make sure
Mm.
that He paves the way for
Mm.
us. And she
Mm.
onarata, I want to bina tsa Sion. I don't know bina tsa Sion because I forgot what she actually calls it. And that moment just stayed with me. Like, I'm not on the wrong path. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, you know,
Mm.
and I will be blessed if I just hang on a little longer. So she's always
Mm.
been dropping these nuggets all through our friendship and our careers as well. And for that, she knows I will forever, eternally be grateful. But I remember there was a time that I got to spend some time with Carol, and she said to me, "You're not one of the boys. You are Motshidisi. You have to bring Motshidisi to the
Mm.
table. You know, how does
Mm.
Motshidisi
Mm.
present? What
Mm.
is Motshidisi's
Mm.
personality?" And she's like, the sooner you can hold
Mm.
that, you know, and know what your
Mm.
X factor is and what you bring to the table, that's when you'll grow. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
and then I started to just
Mm.
walk that
Mm.
Motshidisi road, and it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful. Yeah.
Mm. And then someone was asking here a question. This is Apiwe. He says, "How does one get into such an industry? Any avenue they can take in terms of auditions, experience. How does one follow in your footsteps, basically?"
So auditions can get tricky as well, because sometimes we've open auditions, sometimes we've closed auditions. In my time since the Lady Rugger presenter search, we've only had one other audition. We were looking for presenters for Varsity
Mm.
Cup, and I was privy to that as well.
Mm.
I beg your pardon. So those are few and far between. Um, but if you're brilliant, people are going to pay attention. I think it reminds me of something Sbosh Mafu once said, like, we live in a digital age. You want to be on radio, start a podcast. You want to be on TV, get your YouTube page going, you know, because now a wider audience of people can see you. But I think the most important thing for me, I started in radio, so communication became easier and easier, and you know, structuring my sentences and my thoughts became easier and easier. So radio is also a good avenue to go through, I think. And then just looking out for those auditions and those opportunities. Yes, they're few and far between, but I promise you all it takes is a foot in the door, and then the world is your oyster.
And Senzwa is asking, in an industry that is fast-paced, what rituals remind you of who you are and keep you centered? What do you do that keeps you centered and keeps your ego in check?
I have I have enough friends and family to pull me by my ear if I stray too far from my path. Other than that, like in Wanakasi, man, you know, Wanawakasi, Wanawa K1, Katlehong, it's where it's at. Our feet are firmly on the ground. I know that every time I'm on air, it's a blessing. Every time that I'm on air, it's in service to you. It's not about Motshidisi. It's about entertaining and educating and informing you. And when you think about your work like that in service to others, I think it's easier to keep your feet on the ground, you know. But you've got to have people around you that will remind you of what's real when you start to levitate too far off the ground.
And you left accounting. Had you done your honors? What level were you on? Because I know accounting is quite long. There's a couple of steps that you get to be a CA. What level were you on? And would you ever go back?
No,
is it something you ever go back to want to finish?
I was an undergrad. I just got my normal degree, and I was like. But by then I've been working in radio since 2008. So since my second year, I had been at YFM. And by the time I graduated, I already kind of knew that this is where I wanted to go, you know. I suppose the trick was in trying to convince everybody else around me that, guys, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I think I will flourish. And this is my direction now. But I wanted to complete my studies, you know, for, you know, that plan B, the thing that we always taught. But that's also held me in good stead, because as a freelancer, I also learned how to budget. I learned how to invest my money well, you know, to do well on the financial side. I didn't always get it right. Trust me, you're going to fall on your face a few times. But at least I had that knowledge, that prior knowledge. Yeah.
I do know that when you're in varsity, you were not saving enough. You were making like 3,000 or something like that, and then you used to overspend.
When I started a while, I was making 3,000 rand, and it was a lot of money for a student who was balling. Hey, those were the days. But we blow it because we're young, and I mean, can you imagine the irony of the accounting student? You get your 3 grand and it's like, oh, see what? You're so bad, you know? But that was me. And I think maybe I just thought like I was too strict and rigid and together, that I felt that at that time I could really just let loose and live my life. But what I would say to like young people that have entered the working space, save early. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, you know, 200, 300, 400 here and there, and just put it away for those rainy days. And then if there is no rainy day, then invest that money and then start again with your savings again. But I wish I had remembered to do that early. See, I would be falling out of control, but it's fine.
You've got enough time.
Yeah, we live and we learn. We live and we learn. Yeah.
So someone is asking here, let me just get their name. It's Arabile. He's asking, has what you do changed? Has the industry allowed for more growth? Do you feel that there is enough talent and teaching, not just in sports journalism, but in journalism as a whole?
Oh, many questions. Have we grown and evolved? I think we have. Just in the way that we present ourselves, also in giving more women opportunities. And the great thing about what we do is that the opportunities aren't just in front of camera, behind the scenes as well, where we're having more female directors, more female producers, we've got PAs, we've got vision mixers, people that are working in graphics, EVS, the works. When you arrive at a production, like I used to do back in 2013 was my first live production for Varsity Cup. There was only one woman and she was the production assistant. Now when I go to productions, it's the producer, the PA, sometimes the director, sometimes EVS. So it feels like there are more women that are infiltrating the space. Growth in sports journalism. I think fundamentally journalism will always be the same. I don't necessarily, it's the work that I do, but I didn't go through the school of journalism. I was just a lucky accountant who bumped into an editor who believed that here's a hardworking person who is diligent and excellent. Let me just give her an opportunity. And I literally had to learn the craft from him, Zukile Majov. But I still believe that in anything that you do, you've just got to constantly be, you got to be attached to making your craft bigger and better. Like, do the small things brilliantly, you know, so that you can continue to grow. Malcolm Gladwell spoke about the 10,000 hour rule. Robert Sharma, actually, it's the 10,000 hours. And I believe that every single minute that you put into whatever it is you want to do, over time, you will get to world class. So in journalism, I think there's definitely space for that as well.
And I mean, definitely you are. I mean, I agree that you've been putting those 10,000 hours, because in 2018, you were SA Sports Awards Sports Journalist of the Year. How did that feel? I mean, like, I know it's a bit of a weird question when someone asks you that, but for you, when you got that, what did that mean to you? Being someone who didn't exactly study at school, but you went through the ropes, what did that mean?
It's amazing to be lauded by your peers. I think it's the best kind of compliment when the people that you work in the same industry as or are constantly around say, hey, you are doing so well. Keep at it, keep it up. That's when you know that you are really, really doing good work. And for it to come after 10 years, I think sometimes you get stuck in the work of it, because it does become work at some stage, you know. Sometimes you're down because this didn't happen, or you made a mistake on air, and moments like that just remind you that even with those mistakes being made, you have grown this much over the years, and that your work is not going unnoticed. So that for me was just another feather in the cap. And the best part of that night was having my parents there to witness it as well. Because I think parents, as much as my parents supported me, they didn't quite understand, like, what does this girl do, you know? Yeah, she's on TV and she's doing this rugby thing, but what does she do? What is her gig? And for them to just, they even stood up first. They were like, yay! So yeah, that's a moment I'll forever cherish.
And we've got a lot of questions here, so we're trying to get through as many as we can. Busi is asking, what advice would you give to women in the sports industry to be taken seriously without changing who they are?
I think for women, the biggest thing is always around credibility, you know, because the assumption is that because you are a woman, you don't know what you're talking about. And the only way to cultivate credibility is to do your research, to do your homework, to know what you're talking about, and to be comfortable with saying, I'm not sure of this, can we check it? Or I don't know this, please expand it for me, you know. Learning can't become this thing that we're running away from just because we don't want to look like the idiot at the table. But you're not. If you're asking questions, you're gaining knowledge. You will end up being the smarter person at the table. And I think for a lot of ladies, it's like you already just come in on the back foot just because you are a woman. And in some spaces, just because you're a black woman at that, you're already 100 meters behind. But I think opening yourself up to making sure that your knowledge is on point, that your credibility is on point, that you check and you double check, and then you double check that you've double checked. Make sure that your work is of pristine quality so that everybody can. And you see, when people come for my aesthetic, I remember when we were doing the British and Irish Lions tour to New Zealand 2017, I was getting tweets about, oh, she's got a nose like a pig. Oh, why is she wearing that lace? This is not appropriate for this rugby conversation. And I was like, you see, they're not coming for my work. My work is so good. They're going for the aesthetic. You see, so you've just gotta always be bettering yourself. You know, your competition has to be you, so that you can keep getting better. But do your homework and make sure your work is the best, and then no one will come for you. No, pristine, darling, pristine. Yes.
Yes. So let me just ask, there are other questions here that have rolled up. Let me just, yes. Flex is asking, what advice would you give to someone who's considering becoming a television presenter? What advice would you give to someone?
Television, my love.
Uh,
TV is, I remember a director saying to me in studio, I think it was, that when you speak to the camera, pretend that it is someone that you love, like an old friend, and
mm,
speak to
mm,
one person. Even though there are a million people
yeah.
that will be watching, speak to one person. And I think once you have that chemistry with the space around you, then it's really easier to bring out your best self. And when you think about people you love, obviously it will make you
Mhm.
smile, it will make you happy. I think on top of that is to be authentic, be your true self. If you like to laugh, bring the banter. If you
Yeah.
are a witty person, don't now subdue yourself because you're afraid.
Mhm.
Bring your real and true
Mhm.
self to the table, because people, like, they respond to authenticity. They respond when you are
Mhm.
your true and best self. They're like, hey, I see you, you see me,
Yeah.
let's have a good time. And I think that's what I've been able to do over the years. Even with the panel, when I work with the panel, my work is to bring out the best in them. But they also always say, like, Mods, well done.
Mhm.
It was great to be on this panel with you. We
Yeah.
had a good time. Banter when you can, but be authentic. You see, when you pretend to be someone else, people pick it up very quickly. They're like, hey, ufana no sbanban. And you don't want people to say ufana no sbanban. You want people to watch Motshidisi and be like, hey,
Uh,
Motshidisi, man. Damn it, man. Wanyana ole, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Research is your friend. Always make sure that you know what you're talking about. That's very, very important. And if you're going to be a TV presenter where you're working with people, make the people be in service to the people. So don't make the show about you, make the show about them, and they
Yeah.
will respond better to you.
Mhm. Absolutely. And what would you say has been one of your proudest moments so far?
Ooh,
I
so
think
many.
it's yeah.
There's been so many.
I know. I'll try to speak for you, but give me. Well, what would you say?
uh,
So maybe if you can name three
Three.
of your
Okay.
proudest moments so far.
Um,
Mm.
let's see. My first varsity cup final, that was actually lit. It was the NW Bika UCT Ike Tigers game where the Tigers won, like,
Mm-hmm.
at the death. They scored 3 tries in like 5 minutes. It was incredible. My
Oh
first
wow,
final, it's like,
that's
yay, production to final.
great.
Let's go. I think the second best would probably be covering the Laureus World Sports Awards, both in 2015 and 2016, and literally rubbing shoulders with
Mm-hmm.
the creme de la creme of sports across the globe. The Eric Cantonas of the
Mm-hmm.
world, Michael Holding,
Oh,
Lena.
wow.
In 2016, I got to interview Boris Becker, Luis Figo, Raul. Let's interview Raul, guys. Uh,
Wow.
Lewis Hamilton, Niki Lauda, Nico Rosberg, Novak Djokovic. There were just so many stars. And see that progression. It's like 2014, I'm doing Varsity Cup final. 2015, now I get to do the Laureus World Sports Award. 2016, I get to go back. So this constant progression. The British and Irish Lions Tour of New Zealand will also always be a feather that I hold very dear in my cap, just because it was my first international, but it was the first tour where it was like, this is yours. You are doing all 10 matches. It's all on you. Studio for everything. You go for it. And the most important, well, one of the most important will also be my very first test match. It was a couple of months
Yeah.
after I went through something really horrible. And I finally got to do
Mm.
my first Springbok match. It was when we played against
Oh
Italy and
wow.
lost, unfortunately. But I think I handled studio pretty well that day as well. So yeah, they've been many, but it's those moments that look like little moments, but in the bigger scheme of things, they were really those stepping stones right to that 2019 Rugby World Cup final.
And then another question here before I ask my next question. There's someone who was asking, let me just quickly
Cool.
check. The Dumba was asking, would you agree that millennials are in a tight spot trying to start a life, career, marriage, and kids under the current economic climate? Would you agree with that
I would
sentiment?
agree. I would agree. Because it's getting harder and harder. it's a really tough one where economics is concerned, where money is concerned, because enough is relative. You know, what is enough for me is not enough for you. And then you have to marry your enough with someone else's to try and create this home, the space, this love bubble. And then you have to bring kids into the world. I think, I mean, I'm 31 years old. I thought by this age I would be having my third child, you know, but I'm not married. I don't have kids. And you just have to get to a point where just take everything step by step. You know, don't necessarily pin all of your hopes and dreams on a certain age, because you'll see very quickly in your 20s how things don't happen when you want them to happen. And once I disassociated, hey, 30, I must have this, that, and the other, is when I got to enjoy my victories a bit better, because it wasn't, yeah, I did this at 28, I did this at 29. I'm doing my first test match at Ellis Park. Incredible, you know. I'm doing the Rugby World Cup final. Incredible, you know. And I think, yeah, just run your own race, guys. Don't be comparing yourself to your friends or your family members. And I know there's a lot of pressure on a lot of us. I remember my cousins are like, just have a baby. We'll take care of the baby. I'm like, guys, come on. I can't do that. So just take it at your own pace. But I feel like things like that, you'll never truly be ready. They'll never be like, yeah, now I'm ready, or yeah, now I have enough money. I think be as comfortable as you want to be, and really take your time. Take your time in formulating what you really want. You know, take your time and run your own race. Don't compare yourself to other people. Just take your time and be about you. Make sure you understand what is enough for you. Make sure you have your own definition of success. That's also very important, because if you don't, you're going to emulate what you see around you. You know, is success for you being married and having children? Is it having a multi-million-dollar company? What is success for you? And then run towards that.
And speaking of success for you, my next question would be, what is your dream for yourself? What's your dream for yourself? Will you be like, you know, Mots? Yeah.
You did it.
What's your dream for yourself?
Yo,
You did it.
you did it, girl. I think I constantly have to reevaluate what that means for me as I succeed in my career and in my life. I constantly have to keep, you know, changing. Okay, what is new? What is it now? What is success now? But I just want whatever it is to find me peaceful, to bring me joy. You know, I want to be in great health. I want to be wealthy, whatever that's going to look like, and to constantly be working towards my best self in my work and in my life. So success for me just means having loot, but also having peace. Like peace and joy for me are more important, because even now
to enjoy the
yes, so you must be healthy to enjoy that. But I think it's gonna change with time. I mean, my next goal will be to have a great 2021 British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa. You know, because now we are the hosts here at home, making that big and beautiful. Then after that, it's the Rugby World Cup. In between that, it's the Netball World Cup. It's the Sevens World Cup that we'll be hosting here in South Africa as well. So there are many, you know, things that I want to achieve in my career. But as long as it always finds me at peace and joyful and in good health, then I'm happy.
Shax is asking, aren't you tired of the first woman to that whole notion of because you're the first woman in terms of the Rugby World Cup final to be an anchor. Are you tired of that? When you hear that, when you see that, how does that make you feel?
Proud. Makes me feel proud, but there's also like a feeling of sadness that, you know, it took so long. But Shads will also know that I always say I want to be the first of many. You know, it's great to be the first, but you've gotta now use Bufest Bahao to keep that door open for everybody else that wants to walk through that door, for other little girls and other women that want to get into the space as well. You know, the first time I heard it, I was like, I did that, you know. I made someone who watched feel like they were enough, you know, that they were appreciated. Here's this girl who lives in Katlehong, Ramgunupi East, dusty streets, Zalabatli Martini. If you had told me then that this is what you would do at this time, I wouldn't have believed you. But I think, you know, there's a lot of pain. There's a pang that comes with it. But also for me, I think especially in a space like that and in a moment like that, pride as well.
No, absolutely. So what would people be surprised to know about you? What are some of those quirky things that people like you just said you're enjoying to cook lately. What do you enjoy cooking most right now? What are you cooking the most of? Especially when you stay alone, you probably eat certain things the most than others. Am I wrong?
I'm not allowed to eat red meat, so I'm chickened out. Hey, like I've been eating so much in cars. So I've been making a lot of chicken. I've been enjoying my breakfast as well. That's where I try to get as creative as possible. You know, young omelette there, young, you know, peanut butter and jelly there, you know, all of that stuff. So yeah, you know, trying to be creative. I don't think I'm the best cook in the world. I'm good, but I'm not the best, you know. So I'm making it work. I'm making it work.
Why can't you eat red meat? Is it something you chose not to do?
Just kind of for a while, just for health reasons. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good. Oh yes. So here's another question. There's a question that just come. Two questions actually. There's one from Snera Debe. It says, Snera says, great interview. How do you balance career, love, family, and
career,
friends?
love, family, and friends? You make time. You make time for the things that are important for you. You know, there's more than enough hours in the day for you to make time for the people that you love. You know, I try and spend as much time with family as possible. I'm very far away. Well, not very far away, 75 kilometers, like an hour's drive. But as and when I get the free time, I go. And also, I have a very understanding family. They know that when they're having their weekend, I'm at work. You know, so sometimes I'll pop in on a Tuesday afternoon and I'll stay the night. They love that. They appreciate that. So I think it's also important just to have a family that understands your work dynamic and supports it. But you always make time. I make time for my friends, and that's the part of the lockdown that I've been enjoying a lot, you know, catching up with friends, you know, the video call or everybody checking up on me checking up on everybody, that I've really enjoyed. And even love, even career, when they all stack together, you've just got to know what your priorities are. You got to know what is important to you in your life and make time for it. But also make time for yourself, you know, make time to just space out, you know, disengage from everything and everyone and just bring yourself towards yourself and wusa and enjoy your own company as well. But there's more than enough time. You've just got to prioritize.
That's true. That's actually very true. And Zipo Nkosi is asking, I think you kind of answered this, but let me just read it. It says, what would your advice be? What would be your advice to young women who are passionate about sport, who want to be sports broadcasters and rugby analysts? Just a few words to encourage.
Sorry, can you just ask me that question again? I think I lost you on the audio. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, cool. So I was just saying, Sipho Nkosi is asking, what would be your advice to young women who are passionate about sports, who want to be sports broadcasters and rugby analysts? Just a few words to encourage.
Wait, everyone's saying they can't hear. Are you guys good? Can you hear now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. They couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think your mic moved or something. But yeah, thanks, audio. Jefufu. Hello, sweet eyes. Yeah.
Is it better now?
My advice to the ladies that want to be in sports and enjoy sports. So firstly, you've got to know what you want to do in the space. Do you want to be a presenter? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to direct? Do you want to write scripts? Do you want to be an animator? What do you want to do in sport? Do you want to do marketing? Do you want to do PR? There's a lot of avenues within the space. So, and once you've decided that, do your homework, do your research, know what that space is about. So for example, if you choose to be a presenter, what is your presenting style? Who is your authentic, who are you as your authentic self? Which sport do you actually like? And you like talking about, you know, and you feel free in the space. Who can you go to? Who can you reach out to that will be able to build your knowledge of that sporting code and in that space as well? Do you want to be in studio anchoring? Do you want to be at venue presenting? Do you want to do sideline? So there's just so many elements to it. I think you've got to really just pinpoint what it is that you want to do, and then make sure that you do your homework about that certain position, you know, and then start to find the avenues where you can exercise that which you want to do. So is there a community radio station or a community television station that you can work for? Can you come and intern at SuperSport or at the public broadcaster or at the news channels, for example? That's also a way in. So, but I think the first thing, the most important thing is to be really, really clear about what you want to do in the space. Yeah.
Cool. And Mo, just as the last thing, thank you. Is audio off? They say audio is fine now. No. Let's see. They say audio is fine now. I have a question. Yes, I have a question here. Oh, yes. My gangster says, with all the awards, first off, MG top 200, what do you do to keep yourself focused on the next goal instead of the awards? How do you use it to inspire you to go for bigger and better things?
So my best friend Aziza has taught me over the last 2 years, excuse me, to celebrate the moments, you know, because in celebrating the moments, you take stock of everything that you've done and everything that you've achieved and everything that you've had to overcome. And then it's just that moment, like 2018 SA Sports Awards, and then you move on, and now you start to build, like, what else can I add? What else can I do better? And then it's this next moment where you win, and the wins don't have to necessarily be big or public. Sometimes for me, it's something as easy as having just a good production day where things go wrong and EVS crashes and airspeed crashes, and I have to hold for a minute longer than I wanted to, or I go to venue and venue's not ready and they have to come back. All of those kinds of things. But we have a good day, and the crew will tell you, I'll stand up and be like, I just love what I do. I wouldn't do anything else. It's another moment to just take stock of, but we've come so far just for this moment, and we move on and move on. And I think it's very important that you stop and you take stock so that you can realize, like, this is not what I've achieved. What's next? What's higher? What's the next level? How can I get better than what I'm doing right now? I just feel we're the kind of generation that doesn't stop enough, you know, to really give ourselves.
Yes, we don't.
And to give yourselves kudos. To give yourself kudos and be like,
I think, don't you think also the pressure sometimes of social media? Sometimes I think it's the pressure of social media, because you see people moving and everyone just wants to move and move, and you've done such a lot of great things.
But remember, people aren't posting their moments of pausing. It's very seldom that I post about, today I took a moment to take stock of my life, or today I had a really bad day, or today I fell off the wagon. You know, everything is so celebratory that you start to feel like what looks like highlights reel is people's actual lives, and it's not, you know. But you've got to pause and take it in for yourself, like, hey, I'm doing well, man. I'm killing it. But now I've killed this, now I'm good at this. What else can I get better at? What else can I become better at, you know? And there's so much room to grow. There's so much room to grow, you know. There's always space, no matter how big you get. You know, you've always just got to find that that one more inch, one more level, one more step, and that's when I think you'll enjoy the wins even better. But stop and just smell the roses, you know, high five yourself for doing well. And when you do that, you'll realize, like, okay, now I'm really good at this. Now I need to be up on top of something else. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, the reason why I was saying is we're ending through, because you know what Instagram is doing? It cuts you off the hour mark, and
We're
we
at
are
the
almost like 45. We are like 45. So it literally says, you're
Rape
done
it up,
talking.
rape it
Can you
up.
go?
Yeah.
I'll just ask them maybe three more questions. Apiwe is saying, do you do any mentoring? I think there's a lot of us who can relate to you and your journey, who would love to learn from you and to try to navigate getting into the space and learn from
Yeah.
you.
So I once did like a mentorship with Motshidisi competition, and I've been breaking my brain as to how to move that on to the next level. So it's definitely something that is on my heart.
Mhm.
But my email address is public. So if you want to ask me a question, something that I can answer in the interim, you're more than welcome to do so. I think I do want to do something on a bigger level. I'm
Mhm.
working on it because I really want to be like the big sister, because I think a lot of people, that's what they need to realize, do I want to be in this space? What
Yeah.
do I want to do?
Mhm.
It's the nitty gritty of getting, it's, the work of having to make your dream come true. That's where a lot of people get stuck. So yeah, happy to do that. Drop me a mail, man, and I'll respond.
And then Lundwe is asking, do you remember your first big fluff on air and how did you recover? I wanted to ask this.
It was my very first it was my very first live production. It was a varsity cup game. It was the Shimlers that were
Uh-huh.
playing. I just don't remember who they were playing against. And I was during the build up and they wanted to pre-record it. And then the director eventually was like, nah, we're gonna do this live. And I was like, yay, we're live.
Uh,
But throughout the build up, I kept saying, certainly, certainly, what, certainly, what? And he's like, the sentence doesn't make sense. Please get rid of that word. Then he started counting, like, okay, that's 6 certainlys. Anybody want a case of beer? Mats is buying. By the end, by the end of the build-up, I had said certainly, I think 12 times. And he's like, okay, you owe me 12 beers, and you are never, ever going to do that again. Ever. Get rid of that word in your vocabulary. And then I had,
and you got
yes,
rid of it.
immediately. I want to buy beers every production. Um, but he also told me to expand my mind, expand my vocabulary, find new ways to say things that have been said over 1,000 years. And he really
Mm.
stretched me and put me on the spot. So I felt, yay, I could feel the heat under my collar, but it made me a better presenter as well.
Mm.
I think that's like the fluff where I laugh the most. I make mistakes all the time. I think now I've just finessed
Mhm.
recovery so that you don't pick it up until you're like, hey, man, pass off. But yeah,
She said this, but I
hey,
think
I'm
she
not
meant.
sure now. Anyway, we're here now. But it's a skill that you learn over the years. Yeah.
Mm. Mods, thank you so much for your time. But before we go, please give us that email address. Can you, or maybe you can write it below so that people can see the
Okay,
email
cool. I'm gonna
address.
type it up. It's my
Yeah.
bookings email, but it always
Mm.
comes to me as well. So I am. Oh, can people still see me while I'm typing this thing? Do my
Yes, they can.
collection.
We can see
Okay, .com. But this is also in my. This is also, yeah,
on
this
your
is also in my
bio.
bio. It is my management team, Duma Collective, run by Sibu Mapena. They're the best in the business. So that's where all my email goes now.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is something that is urgent, something you feel we can't really talk about in the DMs, or you don't want to just drop me a message, it's all good. You can send it there and then they'll get it to me and I'll respond.
All right, cool. Mods, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Totally appreciate it. This
No,
was really
I
amazing.
really enjoyed
I loved
it.
it. And I learned quite a lot. I learned quite a lot. Like, I really learned a whole lot. I really, like I promised you. So
I'm
thank you
so
for
glad.
this.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you to
Cool.
everybody that's been listening and
What?
and saying all
Thank
these
you.
nice things about me. I see my besties here, my former manager, Mani Wikanyo, who I love. Hello, babes. And my baby sis, the one and only
Oh, wow.
Fu. My bestie Mahauta, and also big shout out to my manager Sibu Mapena. And someone special
Mm.
and other people that are amazing. Yeah.
And this interview is gonna still be on Glamour after this, so it's still going to be here for like the next 24 hours. So we'll save it on stories so everyone can go watch, and we'll still get all this amazing insight and nuggets and get to know you better.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
And I'll be cooking. Chicken.
All right. Cool. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye.